The Memphis Grizzlies, 27 and 55 last season, which is insane when you consider few stats just for you stat heads out there. Number one, their most used lineup played 68 minutes together. That's the fewest for a most used lineup for a team in the 20 years that the NBA has been tracking it. They played 50 starting lineups and they had 33 different players suit up for them. That to me is unheard of. Like I've heard of injury luck, but I've never seen it at that level, and that's just like insane. To be fair, they do have a couple players with, extensive injury history when I'm looking at John Morant, Marcus Smart. I guess you have a third player with Jaren Jackson Jr., who, by the way, is hurt again, hamstring strain, might miss the rest of training camp, and who knows after that. But John Morant came back from his 25-game suspension last season and it looked like Memphis was going to turn their season around. Then he plays 9 games and gets hurt again. Marcus Smart, he had an injury history in Boston. He continued his injury history in Memphis, and he's 30 years old, so it doesn't bode well for him in the future. Bane, one of the few bright spots on the team, he got hurt. Good to go for training camp, but still kind of worrisome. Gigi Jackson was one of the sort of unheralded, unexpected stories of last season. Played really well for Memphis. He's out to start the season. Vince Williams Jr., another one, out to start the season. Like, it doesn't look that much better than it did last season with the injuries already. Like, there's a lot of media personnel and a lot of experts who feel like Memphis can compete for a title this year. Like they have the talent and they were terrific. Like this up and coming OKC Thunder S story a couple years ago with John Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, like that core. But Adams is gone. They traded him midway through last season, although he was missing the season anyway. In his place, all they have now is Brandon Clark, who missed most of last season anyway from the injury recovery. So your center depth is a little worse. Dylan Brooks is gone. Now you have Marcus Smart in his place, and he gets hurt a lot. So now, you know, why do people think that Memphis is going to win a title or even get close this season? Like, yes, John Morant is great, but he has maturity issues, off the court issues, and injury issues. And he's an undersized guard that does not bode well for him in the future, even though he is still relatively young. Desmond Bane, great. I don't think Desmond Bane's ever going to be a superstar, but he's certainly entered the all-star caliber of player, from my personal opinion. Jaren Jackson Jr. had a pretty solid season last season when he did play. It wasn't like the best, and there certainly was questions about a regression as a result of increased role and also his time in the Olympics from the FIBA Cup. I'd like to think that he'll play better this season, but it's a little bit doubtful, especially his injury history. He's not a good rebounder as a center, as a power forward slash center. Like that's kind of alarming when you're supposed to be this defensive player of the year. And with Memphis being smaller this season, like he really needs to step up if Memphis wants any chance of winning. Like the only path I see to sort of second round conference finals for Memphis, Ja, Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. all play 60 plus games and they just run roughshod in the league playing the same sort of style they did during the sort of first iteration with Ja and Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. Because now it's kind of a different team. Some pieces, as I mentioned before, have left. So you're gonna have to figure out the new pieces, the new lineups. I totally almost forgot about Zach Edey, drafted in the lottery, was considered one of the best players in college, dominated at Purdue. Certainly was limited in what he could do at Purdue because it is college and he was their like focal point. So there were questions coming into the league of, oh, well, maybe he gets to play more aggressive defense because he had to, control himself at Purdue. And on the flip side, something that concerns me is that he is not a player that plays with a lot of pace and tempo the way the NBA is sort of designed to be played. So is he going to be able to handle the up and down? Is he going to be able to handle switches, the sort of grind of an NBA season? He's a very durable player, even at his size, but I just kind of worry about that stylistically. If he pans out, then great. Maybe Memphis is like a 2 or 3 seed, but I'm not in that boat that Memphis is all of a sudden a top tier Western Conference team, especially with a loaded West. I see them more in that sort of 5 to 8 range, if I'm being perfectly honest. And hopefully there are no more injuries with Memphis, but they're going to have to hope to not get injured too much, get their injured guys back as soon as possible. I also have concerns about the small forward position because if you're going to start Marcus Smart, you're going to be very small with Bane, Morant, and Smart as your like perimeter players. I also have concerns about center, as I mentioned before, between Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark. That really isn't much. So they're going to have to figure that out. They're going to have to figure out depth. But if Vince Williams comes back soon enough and Gigi Jackson comes back soon enough, maybe they can make a run at it. Maybe they can become the Memphis of old, but I need to see it a little bit throughout the season to believe it.